Welcome to our video series on using articles for online marketing. In this video, we'll look at structuring your article for maximum effect. In this video, I'm going to talk you through how to structure your articles for maximum effect. And of course, the whole point of your articles really is with the title, get someone to read it, and then the point of the article itself is to get someone to read down to the bottom and then click on your link and visit your site. So, how do you achieve that? Of course, your article has to be relevant and it has to be interesting. You know, if it's not relevant, your target market isn't going to read it. And if it's not interesting, they aren't going to read it either. To help with that, it's suggested that you keep paragraphs short. Long paragraphs are really off-putting. They look like hard work, so people just won't bother. So short, punchy paragraphs with short sentences if you can. As I previously mentioned, lists are good. So for example, there's a good example here. They have a list. Lists are easy to read. Lists are bullet points effectively, and bullet points are easy to read, and numbered lists are even easier. For example, if your article was, in this example, it's called Why I Love Water Aerobics, which isn't a great title. Why would you want to read it? It could be changed, for example, to 7 ways that water aerobics rapidly improves your health. And actually related to that, I know we covered titles previously, but titles do, of course, have to be believable. You can certainly get someone's attention by saying, I will make you $1 million in 24 hours, but it's not believable. It may get read just for sheer novelty, but you've instantly lost the reader's trust because it's just not believable at all. In effect, you're lying to the reader. So you have to make your titles believable. Anyway, if this was 7 ways water aerobics rapidly improves health, you could have a list. The first way water aerobics improves health, then the second way, and the third way, and fourth way, and so on. If it's numbered, people are likely to read to the end, because, as I said, it's easy to read, and people want to see the entire list. Okay, so those are some initial suggestions. Again, interesting, relevant short paragraphs, and short sentences if possible. Bulleted lists are good, and numbered lists are also very good. Make the information worthwhile. Make your readers appreciate having read the articles so they're more likely to click through to get more content and find out more about you. But the standard article word count is 500 to 600 words. So it can be difficult to say something incredibly useful in that number of words, but still, that's really the goal you're going for. And again, as I previously mentioned, you can write articles yourself, but unless you're a very quick writer, it's probably not going to be the best use of your time. So you're probably going to want to hire someone on a site such as, there's the well-known site elance.com. You can post projects there and see if you can get writers, and see how much you're charged per article. Of course, the price per article does differ wildly from writer to writer, and also, it's also going to affect the quality of the article. So, how high quality do you need your articles, and what are you prepared to pay? It's something to think about. I've had quotes per article from $5 to $30, so that's something to look into. And of course, the more work you give someone, the more likely you are to get a better rate quote. But generally, I suggest you try someone out carefully. You don't just jump in and ask for 100 articles from someone. Instead, you maybe ask for 5 or 10 and see how they get on with that, and maybe you try several different writers at the same time. And if you find a few good ones, then maybe you can just stick with the one you prefer. And there's also guru.com, and you can do the same there. You can post projects, and you can find writers you like that way. And of course, you can do Google searches for article writing, for example, or freelance writer. And again, I've noticed that the prices do differ wildly. Often, you're going to be a lot better off going to a freelance writer than a company that has a lot of writers on staff. For those large companies, often their prices are way, way higher because of all their overhead and so on. So, often you'll be better going with a freelance writer who may be working from home and who has a number of private clients, and you can become one of them. So, those are some initial suggestions for article writing. Again, if you find a good writer, then it's problem solved for most of those issues. Of course, you're going to want to read through the articles to make sure you're happy with them, and also get other people to read through them to see what they think. Are the articles interesting? Are they relevant? Do they find the articles boring? You know, a boring article is going to be no use to you whatsoever. People just won't read them. So getting good writing done is important for this. Also, of course, the better the writing, the more likely it is that the article will be picked up from an article directory and be republished elsewhere. I also suggest you look at other articles in your target market and see which ones work for you and which ones don't. The ones that work for you, you see which elements of it you think work, and then you try to make that part of the articles you create. Again, for example, with the media, let's go back to the Forex example, foreign exchange example, in the Motley Fool at Fool.com. They have professional writers on staff, and they know how to structure articles so that they're interesting and they're read. So go to such successful sites in your market and see how those articles work, and keep those points in mind. Keep those structure elements and presentation elements in mind for your own articles. Okay, I've just brought up this page at Fool.com for a quick example. And again, you can see that the paragraphs aren't too long. That's important for making your article noticeable. And you want to have a punchy beginning to your article so people start reading it. It really should begin with a bang to get people's interest immediately. Then once they've started reading, it's a lot easier for them to keep reading. If the first sentence or two doesn't grab their interest, they're unlikely to read further. It's also helpful often to write in the first person because it comes across as the spoken language. For example, oops. That's just a quick example, but it makes it a lot more readable. After all, the articles you're writing aren't for the Wall Street Journal. They aren't very formal, and you don't want them to be very formal because that would make them more difficult to read than articles written in the first person and written in a casual, conversational, and interesting way as if you were talking with someone else. For example, oops, they were off by some $3.4 billion. I, for one, believe that the brass at Merrill is a rather intelligent group. You can see that it's very conversationally written, so that can help your articles be very readable as well. If you can use them, subheadings are good also, to break up the article, make people skip through, and jump straight to the part they're interested in, which makes it more likely that they'll read. This isn't a very interesting subheadline, but it's something to bear in mind. This one is better. Let the games begin. That's kind of intriguing and makes you want to read from that point to see what they're writing about. And also, it's often useful to use quite emotive language, to have language with emotion in it, because it makes it more interesting. You're going to get a reaction from people which makes it more likely they'll read it and visit you. Listen to this paragraph. And given the $3.5 billion margin of error at Merrill Lynch, it appears the companies themselves can't accurately measure the extent of risk of these securitized pools. It's not difficult to see how Buffett, that's investment guru Warren Buffett, dubbed derivatives financial weapons of mass destruction. Basically, I was leading up to this point, this quote from Warren Buffett, but it definitely makes it more interesting and makes the reader get more involved with the article. So again, rather than just a stuffy article and something written in the third person that may be written by the Wall Street Journal or The Economist, for example, and those publications obviously have a big market, but that's not the market you're going for with your articles. You're going for the very casual reader, and you have to grab their attention quickly and get them to read. So those are just some suggestions to keep in mind for your articles. But if you get a good writer to work with, a lot of these points are going to be solved automatically for you anyway. A good writer is all about things like this, and they'll just take all this and handle it for you. Again, as I've already touched on, making your articles too generic isn't going to be very interesting, so try to make them relevant but quite specific, and you'll make it more likely that the person who came to your article, however they did, if it is specific and of interest to them, and also make it timely if you can do that, or give the impression of being timely, or related to recent news events, then it's more likely to be read because it's going to seem more relevant to them right now rather than just a general article that they can read on hundreds or thousands of other sites on the web. So why would they want to read yours if it's just a general article? So specific and relevant and punchy, those are all good points to keep in mind to get your article read and read through to the end, so then the reader becomes a visitor to your website.